All right, thank you everybody for attending this evening. I'm going to open up the board meeting. This is a joint board meeting. We want to thank Hancock board members for coming up and all of the attendees. This is a very important meeting for us. So please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. So again, thank you for coming this evening. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Denise, and you can invite the team up.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Denise Cook, Superintendent of Deposit Central Schools. Lori Asquith is at the other end of the table, Superintendent of Hancock Central Schools. First of all, thank you for coming out. We're so happy that you're here to take part in this process. As you know, this has been quite a long process, going back many decades, but most recently, starting last March, we held a joint meeting in Hancock where we discussed the possibility of a merger study to look at the potential to look at a lot of things, to look at where our districts will stand in the future and if it's beneficial or not for the districts to join forces, financially, opportunities for kids, many different things, which will be the process of the study will be explained tonight. And that's really why we're here tonight, is to talk about what goes into the study and the process of the study. And we were happy to have our guests here today at our Deposit Central Schools, going around the buildings, meeting teachers, looking at all of our facilities. They will be in Hancock tomorrow. They were supposed to be there yesterday, but we had a little bit of snow that needed to be cleaned up, and we wanted to give a little grace period for that. But tonight our purpose is to talk about the process of the merger study that was approved by the boards of education. So as you remember, the boards approved going forward with the merger study. So we're at the point where we've been kicking off information about that. We've been asking you to join stakeholder groups, focus groups, so that you can be a part of having your voice heard. And we also have here tonight Mike Rulo, the superintendent of DCMO BOCES. BOCES is the lead group that hired Leadership Solutions Advisors to do the study after putting out a request for a proposal for that study. Mike's going to do a little bit of an overview of the study, of how we got here, I think, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll let him speak about that. And the study, it's the process of where we are right now and where it's going. And then we'll invite up our guests from Leadership Solutions Advisors to talk about the actual process of the study. So I'd like to turn it over. Lori, would you like to say anything?
I just want to thank Deposit Central School District School Board and the community for hosting this lovely event. We appreciate your partnership and hospitality. And of course, all the folks that are here and brave the cold this evening, and the folks who are tuning in from home. We appreciate you engaging in this process, and this is the work. So thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce Mike Rulo. Do you have a clicker? That is it. That is it. And the clicker is on there. Do you want to use this one? Or do you want to use that one?
I'd be in trouble on American Idol if I had to get the microphone out and really. So good to see everybody. Thanks for coming out. Also, especially given the weather that we've been dealing with, it's easy to stay home in sweatpants and in a sweatshirt and slippers. So, but this is an important topic. So commend you all for making sure that you're participating in it. Thanks to both boards of education for your continued attention and effort in this particular area. As Denise said, I'm Mike Rulo. I'm the district superintendent at DCMO BOCES. Not only do I work at BOCES, but also work for the state education department. If you're wondering why is this guy here? And so we just help to liaison from the state education department to things like this, where we can be an intermediary between what's happened in our local districts and the state ed folks that really certainly have some work to do as a part of this process. And you'll see that as I go through my presentation this evening. So Denise already hit on a few of these folks, but just want to be abundantly clear as to who the people are that are kind of making decisions around this process. And so just by way of waiving, our Deposit Board of Education, Dean Price, President, and John Lanner, Vice President, Stacy Axtell, Dawn Faulkner, Julie Martin, and from the Hancock Central School District, the President, Cliff Johnston, Vicki Bogart is the Vice President, Jake Gear, Nick Hazen, Nick is here, and Dr. Michael McDonald also here. My colleague, Dr. Rebecca Stone, couldn't be here. She represents the Broome-Tygart BOCES, and you will see her at times throughout the process. We'll share in the responsibility and the work. And also our merger study consultants, a couple of reps, Scott Bishoping and Kaz Tangora, who will really be running point in both districts, but have a whole team of people in the background with expertise in a variety of areas. Don't want to steal their thunder. You'll hear from those gentlemen in just a little bit. So my piece in this, if you were in the audience last March, or have perused the website and looked at the different documents that exist to date, my presentation might look a little familiar. That's good. That's intentional. And really, I just want to refresh because it's been a while, right? It's almost been a year since the very first presentation on this topic. And so I just want to kind of refresh, replant some seeds as to what are the highlights of the process and those kind of those milestone types of activities that would happen here. So I think a good question, how do we get here, right? How do we get here and why reorganize now? Why the conversation now? And certainly not going to read word for word on the slide to you, but just know that school districts in New York State can share services, can have municipal cooperative agreements, agreements between districts in a little bit, okay? Can certainly have agreements in terms of like sharing services and trying to make sure that that their districts have access to all the resources that they need. And you can see a couple of different kind of low-hanging fruit, if you will, things like athletics and extracurriculars. But then getting into some of those pedagogic experiences, like sharing instructors, sharing office staff, things of that nature, are often some of those next steps. And then sometimes when it works really well, and sometimes there are different fiscal constraints, staffing constraints, it starts to push districts to think a little bit more seriously about the process of reorganizing. And it's pretty clear that for the Deposit and the Hancock districts, when we look at a historical perspective, that's kind of exactly what has happened over time, right? And you can see back to 1992 and 1993. I just saw a picture not too long ago. It wasn't back that far, but I actually had a full head of hair at that point. So a long time ago, right? And you can see that the districts looked at a merger study and saw some positive benefits if the districts were to move in that direction. And of course, you can see that last bullet point, some things that were concerns of the respective communities. Probably similar concerns that exist today, probably some of the same benefits that would exist. But the conditions are likely to be very different today for the two districts than it was back in the early 90s. Fast forward to 2012, when there was another shared services study completed. And the districts have really maintained some momentum without doing a formal study like is happening now to consider whether or not to reorganize and to merge. You can see some of those current collaborations and the enhanced opportunities that are currently in place in the districts. Things like shared professional development, merged athletics, that of course everybody knows, if you pay attention, has been very successful for the two districts. Lots of state championships, right? Yahoo, go Eagles. And so shared teaching positions are some of those newer offerings between districts to make sure that students have experiences and are building a transcript that is representative of what a young person needs to be competitive, whether they're going into college or into the workforce, into the military, post-high school. and then even some administrative functions that are being shared, things like business office functions and things like special services, right? And so it kind of begs the question, so what else is possible for our districts? What could the future look like if we continue down this path and continue to look for ways to enhance the services that we provide to our communities and to the children of our district? So again, when you look at big picture, why reorganize? Really, it's to make sure that you're able to meet the educational needs of the students in your respective school district. And there is arguably some opportunity to do that in the best way possible by looking at a reorganization. And again, you can see for those that like to really dig in on the details, there's a reference to some state law that authorizes the commissioner to continue to update something called the master plan. Definitely a cure for insomnia if you were to dig that out and start to read what that looks like, right? But there's been a continual evolution of school district organization, reorganization. By the way, same for BOCES. There are 37 BOCES in New York State. There was a time where there were significantly more BOCES than that. DCMO being one of them that actually merged, two BOCES merged into one. And so this is really by design that we look to make sure that we're kind of changing with the times, if you will. So what is school district reorganization? It's simply the act of creating a new school district from two other school districts, right? And so one or more existing districts merge and they form one single larger school district. There are several different types of reorganization. We're going to focus in this study on centralization, but I'll highlight the other two, again, just for information's sake. And in centralization, that new school district is created that includes the entire area of both of the school districts. They have the share boundary line, of course, Deposit and Hancock do. And our two districts are certainly eligible to be centralized. Again, just so that you're aware, it's annexation and consolidation are the other two terms. If you do a little bit of reading, you might see those two things kind of really don't apply in this situation, and certainly is not the focus of the merger study right now. So there are several steps in the process that have to be followed, some of which have already been done. We're not starting from ground zero tonight as kind of the kickoff to this process. But as you know, your boards of education held joint meetings last year to really determine whether they wanted to undergo a formal study, right? And so here we are. We know that the boards did resolve to have a formal study. Myself and my colleague were present and will continue to be as a neutral party to support the process, right? So step one, check, we're done. Step two has also already been taken care of. The boards agreed and to have that formal feasibility study, put out an RFP, as Denise said, secured the consultants, leadership solutions advisors to really dig in and do this study. Now, some good news that happened, and you know through correspondence that your superintendents pushed out to their communities, and to the board's credit, took a little bit of a pause later in 2025 because the state education department changed some rules around the aidability of these merger studies for component districts if the BOCES kind of runs point, holds the contracts, some other things that we have to meet that we presented at the board meetings last year, but it allows some of these costs to be aidable. So it really reduces the net impact to the districts from a cost perspective. Similarly, a new round of local government efficiency grants has been opened that we are applying for. Doesn't mean we're going to get the money, but we ought to take a really good shot at it, and we will. Very talented grant writer that has been doing the lion's share of the work in the background to really position our grant to hopefully be successful, and again, minimizes the cost impact to the school districts. So great foresight and commitment on the part of your superintendents and your boards to really say, how do we leverage resources so that we can get this work done, but make it as cost neutral to our districts as possible, and we have done that. Aidability through BOCES, gonna happen, right? There will be some aidability through the BOCES. Local government efficiency grant, we'll see, right? Fingers crossed, but we're doing everything that we can in order to make that happen. So here we are now, kind of at step 3, beginning the feasibility study. And Leadership Solutions Advisors was in deposit today and Hancock tomorrow, really beginning to roll up their sleeves and get rolling on this process. And here's what will happen through the process. Your boards will have committed to share information, to maintain transparency throughout this process, to have multiple public meetings throughout the process, to update the communities on where are we, what are we learning, what do you need to know. And as you likely know, there are some stakeholder groups being formed to help participate in the process and to make sure that your voice is heard and becomes part of the record of work throughout this process. So notice that meeting dates, times, discussion topics, they'll all be available and be posted. So people should have access to that information. Kind of no surprises through the process, right? We want, and I think I can say this confidently on behalf of everybody up here in the front of the room, we want the communities to have all of the information they need to make the very best decision they can make moving forward. And you can only do that by inviting people into the process and making sure that the information is getting shared. And so you can see at the appropriate times, questions are encouraged. We got microphones all over the place in here to field some questions tonight at the right time. And honest answers will certainly be provided. And if we have to go find some information, we'll do that. And we'll report back out. Step 4 in the process, right? So we're moving forward. The feasibility study gets completed. And I have a summary timeline in a couple of slides that I'll show you just to kind of like review these things. But step 4 in the process, the boards of education will hold a non-binding straw vote or collect signatures by petition to assess public support for reorganization. There's 2 different options here that will be exercised at the right time. It's one or the other. It's not both. There will either be a straw poll or there will be petitions used to assess the public support. Excuse me. It's basically just a day so the question was, what is a straw vote? It's a day and a time when members of the public can show up and just make a vote to say, yes, I'm in favor, no, I'm not, right? Or the petition. It'll be one or the other, okay? So notice neither the straw vote nor the petition is legally binding, but assessment of public support is necessary in the process. The commissioner will not order a statutory vote if that hasn't happened. And there are some rules around how many people need to sign a petition, how many votes need to be cast in order for it to be considered a valid and reliable information from the commissioner's standpoint. So again, I'm just operating under the assumption that everything moves forward, that one step is successful, the next step moves on, right? And of course, if the straw vote goes nowhere, the petitions go nowhere, then the process theoretically could be done, right? But so I'm just going to talk under the assumption that we move forward through the process, okay? Step 5, the district superintendents, Dr. Stone and myself, would formally report the results of the straw vote or the petition to the commissioner, indicating whether to proceed further, right? And that letter to the commissioner in support of reorganization formally starts the statutory legal process, which means then the next step is that the commissioner orders that a statutory vote take place, right? So there's some other legal things that happen in terms of the commissioner establishing boundaries of the new district and things of that nature, right? But the commissioner then says this vote will take place. So here's a summary of a projected calendaring timeline, not etched in stone, but we expect that we'll be able to stick pretty close to this timeline. So here we are, January of 26, beginning our feasibility study. In the springtime, late April to early May, they will be completed with their work, and their draft report gets submitted to state ed to make sure that it's complete and it's thorough and there are no missing pieces. And once state ed says this is good to go to the public, then it will come to the boards of education. We expect that to be late May to June. The boards at that point will have an opportunity to consider the information in the study, and then they can resolve to continue the process, or the process could end. There will be some public meetings and some information sessions that take place around that work. Assuming, again, that the boards move forward with the process, you can see that there will be that straw vote and that petition. That procedural step is that assessment of public support. So we're thinking like that likely June timeline for that straw vote or that petition. Then we would, myself and Rebecca Stone would issue our letter to the commissioner, which will get us to the next piece of the puzzle, where the commissioner authorized that vote. It says, hey, we gotta have this happen. There's a little bit more process that will occur in September, where there is a legal statutory petition to move forward. There will be one from each district, and to have each district as a voting site. You can see the number of signatures that's required there, 10% of the enrollment in the district, or 100, whichever is less. And then upon receipt of those petitions, the commissioner orders a vote to occur within 30 days. Okay? There's a definitive clock on that statutorily. So within 30 days after receipt of those petitions by the commissioner, that statutory vote takes place. If that was a positive vote in support of reorganization, then there's a whole bunch of work to do. And you can see no sooner than July 1 of 2027 could a new district begin operating. But there is, the seating of a new school board that has to occur, right? Lots of additional things that would happen in between that, that September, October 26th timeframe and the very earliest that a new school district could begin to operate. Again, just to replant some of those seeds around what the benefits of reorganization are and some things that you'll be hearing about throughout the study, and I know these gentlemen will include it in their report. So you have a larger student population and a larger tax base. Now it's interesting, and you might recall from last March, the taxable values for year two districts are within pennies of each other. That isn't always the case between two adjacent districts, and it can create some real challenges with how the taxes would be distributed in a new district. Really kind of starting from a good place in terms of that for the two districts, but you have that kind of combined tax base. There's also some reorganization incentive operating aid and some reorganization incentive building aid. So you'll start to see some details on projections for operating aid and for building aid as this process moves forward. And pieces of the report or the report itself gets disseminated. Again, you can see some of the important pieces. That incentive operating aid is there for 14 years. There's a proportionality each year that occurs, right? That'll be laid out for you all, so you'll have all the details of the financials through the feasibility study. Same for the building aid. I've got a couple of slides on the building aid, and not to make it complex, but just so that if folks want to go back and revisit this presentation, you can kind of dig in on some of those bullet points and start to let some of those ideas really cement, right? But that building aid is exactly what you would expect for construction work, right? Improving facilities and infrastructure and grounds, right? Similarly, there are some program benefits, and I think that that goes without saying. But more educational programming, more support services, more opportunities, reduces that competition for staff, really, and creates a more robust staff to offer a more robust program. And that note at the bottom, as I've already said, but I want to point it out again, the feasibility study will provide specific and updated details on all of the fiscal considerations, so that the boards and the stakeholders, all of you, have the necessary information. Really important. A little bit of information about the building aid. Again, don't want to dig into all the details, but what you can see underlined there is when you start to get to a maximum aid ratio of 95% on capital work, that means 95 cents on the dollar comes back to the new district, right? Really a significant opportunity to do some enhancements of infrastructure and the like, right? Again, some language on maximum cost allowance and how that is calculated by the state education department. You'll see some more information about that as time progresses. And notice that any costs above the maximum cost allowances are not eligible for building aid. Nothing new there, right? But it's important to point out. Notice new projects have to start within 10 years of a merger to take advantage of an enhanced building aid ratio. If the reorganized district renovates current buildings without adding new space, you get that enhanced building aid ratio. You can see the MCA will not be reduced if no new space is added. And for anyone who's wondering, well, what about current work that we had done and that we're still paying for? Notice that those aid payments for existing capital debt actually match the higher of the two previous districts. So there'll be a comparison of Deposit-Hancock, and then it goes to the higher of the two. But the aid ratio is not enhanced there, like it would be for some of the other new work. So, in a nutshell, we've got a whole bunch of steps in process, a pretty reasonable calendar laid out to create some expectation in terms of what are those milestones that we should be hitting and about when should we be seeing these things happening. And then that feasibility study is really the critical next component in this process that will absolutely provide critical, unbiased information for all of you, for your entire school communities, to make the best decision that you can make for your districts moving forward. So I thank you, and I'll turn it over to Kaz and Scott to do their piece.
Good evening. My name is Cosmo Tangora. I am an associate of Leadership Solution Advisors. My colleague Scott Bishoping is with me this evening. We'll tell you a little bit more about us in a little bit. As Mike had said, there are a number of steps that are required in order to go through this process. Scott and I both have some experience with school district reorganization studies, and we are only at the feasibility study stage. So we're just beginning to collect information from the district. At this point, we know nothing, right? So that's the whole point of the study, so that throughout the course of collecting this information and data, that we can make an informed decision to help the Board of Education make theirs at the end of the day. So what is the strategic intent? What is it that we are trying to do? We want to find out whether or not the merger of these two school districts into one will result in enhanced education opportunities for students, whether or not that we will be able to achieve an optimal organizational structure to support those educational opportunities for students. And then finally, is there a viable long-term financial plan that can be put in place to make sure that the educational opportunities are sustainable over time? There's nothing would be worse than for a school district to reorganize, put a number of new initiatives forward, and then within 10 years have to start cutting those because a financial plan wasn't put into place. Now, what we do is a little different than some other districts. We start with educational opportunities, right? As a young person told us once, when we should look at these things, not focusing on the past of the adults, but the future of the students. So, and I thought, man, out of the mouths of babes, isn't that fantastic? So we don't create a financial scenario and then back into it to create educational opportunities. We focus on, and we will have conversations with many, many, many stakeholders, faculty, staff, community members, parents, community members who aren't parents, students, to determine what those educational outcomes could be in a reorganized school district. So our approach is rooted in some core values, and one is responsiveness. So Mike had said this earlier. We will respond to any question that you have if we have the answer at that time. If we don't, we will make sure we get you that answer. But we will be responsive to anyone and everyone. As we always say, you may not love our response, but it will be a factual response rooted in data and what exists. We're pretty deliberate about the process that we use. I've been through this myself as a school superintendent, and the reason why I do this now as a retiree is because I didn't love necessarily all the experiences I had. So we think thoughtfully about how we want to approach these studies, and that's why we do start with the educational outcomes in mind. And then transparency. So we want every meeting that we have to be broadcast, to at least let people know that we're meeting, when we're going to meet, who we're meeting with. We are going to encourage as many people as possible to be part of this process, whether through advisory committees, members of stakeholder groups, members of focus groups. We're going to meet with, we have elevating student voice in this is very important to us. So we will talk to many students throughout the course of this process to hear what they have to say. And we want as many of you to be a part of those groups as possible. We will have failed if at the end of this process, someone says, oh, we didn't know this was going on, or no one asked me, or I never had the opportunity to ask a question or participate to whatever level you want to. And then also doing what you're doing tonight. Coming to Board of Education meetings, asking questions, listening intently, and making sure that the folks that you've elected or the folks that they've hired are answering your questions. So I just wanted to, I said we talk a little bit about our group. We do have a team behind us. Jason Andrews is our principal advisor. He's currently the superintendent of the Windsor Central School District. You won't see him much. He's kind of a behind the scenes involvement in our project. My name is, again, I'm Cosmo Tangora. Just a little bit about me. I started my career as a special education teacher. I spent 29 years as a school district administrator, 23 as a superintendent of schools, a little bit of time as a deputy commissioner of education for New York State. And I've been involved in school district reorganizations as a superintendent twice in my career. I say twice I tried to merge myself out of a job, once with the Oppenheimer-Freda Central School District and another when I was with Ilion. Jeff Ziegler is a retired superintendent, last at Stillwater, but was a longtime secondary school administrator. He's our educational experiences advisor and expert. Jeff is only interested in educational experiences, refuses to come to board meetings, and won't talk about transportation or anything else. So we lean on Jeff for all things education. I'm going to have Kathy Blackman, who was last the CBO at Broome Tioga BOCES. Thank you very much. I lost my train of thought there for a moment. She's our financial sustainability expert. And Scott, let me have you introduce yourself.
My name is Scott Bisping. I'm a recovering superintendent. I think I usually tell people I was a superintendent of a small school district near Geneseo, Livonia, New York, and then became a district superintendent of Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES. I've spent my entire career in rural schools and really have come to know the merger study process through my work as a district superintendent, having done been involved in 2 different merger studies in my own BOCES.
So we just want to walk you through our process. Some of this is repetitive, but today is month 1. So normally this is a 8-month process. We're doing it a little quicker so that we can get through the process early enough for folks to make a decision soon. No, we do it. This is our. What were you going to say, Scott? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we start today. Basically, we spent the day today in Deposit. We're going to spend the day tomorrow in Hancock. We are going to start to ask your folks that work for you to provide us with all sorts of documents. We understand that your administrative teams are strapped. Your small districts, people performing multiple roles. We're not going to make their lives easier for the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of information that we need in order for us to do this job. So we apologize in advance for the burden that we're going to place on everyone over the next few weeks. We will start with community engagement. There will be multiple opportunities for the community to engage. We will use a tool called Thought Exchange that will be shared throughout the community so that people can share their thoughts in an electronic format. We have stakeholder work groups that I know that folks are being recruited to be on, but if you're interested in those or you know anybody who is, please reach out to your superintendents, as well as focus groups, and we'll have several elevating student voice sessions with students. Again, trying to engage as many stakeholders in this process as possible. We will have monthly meetings, not only with the advisory committee. I'm going to talk to you about the very important role that the members of the advisory committee play in a little bit. But also we'll have those groups and around stakeholder work groups, focus groups, and elevating student voices around educational experiences, the organizational capacity that is necessary, financial sustainability, and then we'll also share our draft report with with all those groups as well as the advisory committee to make sure that we've captured everything that the stakeholders have shared with us before we send that off to the state education department. Once we'll have a couple joint meetings with the board. Tonight is we had kind of our kickoff, though we've met with the board a few other times over the past year. And then at the end, as Mike had said, at the end of the process, hopefully at the end of April, beginning of May, we will send our draft report to the state education department when that comes back. And then we will share the final draft in a joint board meeting format at that point as well. So I had mentioned earlier that we are going to request several documents. Now, this is not a fully inclusive list. So we will ask for all of this information and other information as we ask questions and uncover more information about each school district. But there's a lot of information that you already have. We're not asking schools to recreate documents, just to they have many reports they have to file every year, and we need to look at all that information. And you'll notice it's not just student data, it's operations, it's finances, it's employment contracts, it's every aspect of school district operations are examined in depth throughout this process. Just to give you an example and be as transparent as we could be, this is what we did and who we spent, how we spent our time in Deposit today. And it's also the schedule of how we'll spend our time in Hancock tomorrow. As you can see, we meet with as many folks as we can during those first 2 days. By far, this is not the last time we will be in the district. We will meet with all of the people that we met today multiple times. And then we will ask each of those people, who else should we talk to? And then we'll ask those people, who else should we talk to? And we aren't interested in titles at all. We are interested in talking to every individual who we need to talk to and who needs to talk to us in order for us to make some sort of determination when the time comes. So I talked about the advisory committee, and the advisory committee is a group of folks that will meet with us once a month. So we actually have been although we worked through the BOCES, we're working for the boards, right? In order for us to create this document, go through this pretty intensive process and come back with a document, a final report to share with the Board of Education. We don't want that to be just the work that we've done. That's why we include so many stakeholders. And one of those groups is the advisory committee. And we're looking for a group of people who are willing to be passionate and transparent about this process. So the members of that committee are also going to be shared throughout both school districts so that people in the community who want to go to those individuals that they may trust more than me, because you don't know me, or some other people, you can go to the members of the advisory committee and ask them specific questions as well. But they are an advisory committee. They serve the Board of Education. But at the end of the day, this decision is made by the folks that you elected. So they will make the final decision based on a lot of information and a lot of input from stakeholder groups, whether or not they're going to move forward. Everyone else just advises them and helps them shape their decision making. So no one loves the change process, right? And we all know that it's human nature to be a bit resistant to it for the most part. But there are two emotions you go through, right? So a feeling of loss and a loss aversion, and then also through any change process. So there's a high risk for loss or a low risk for loss. And then there's how much are you going to gain from that process. There's either not much to gain, low gain, or very much to gain, high gain. So we're always shooting for that lower right-hand quadrant where it's a low pain and high gain. This is what our final report would look like. There's the table of contents that folks would see. We have frequently asked questions, so we are going to hear a lot of questions throughout this process. And we will capture those and answer those questions. We will develop insights based on the conversations that we have with people around those educational experiences, organizational capacity, and financial stability. We will definitely be able to identify opportunities. We'll also identify challenges, and both those insights, those opportunities, and those challenges will be spelled out in the final study. We will be talking to students. We pull their voices out purposely so that folks can hear what the students have to say. And then we have a portion of the report that we refer to as blue sky thinking, and that's really the sky's the limit. What are the limitless possibilities that could exist if this were to go forward? The final reports is front load what we've learned. So at this point, we would like to open it up to questions, but so.
I think we're going to have Mike moderate so that he can make sure that whoever you think it's best suited for, Mike.
Sure.
Do we have a handheld mic or no? So I think the process would be if Dean, I don't know if you have a statement you'd like to read about it, like time limits.
Yeah.
What we'd like people to do to ask a question if you are unable to come down. I'm sure we can come to you. Sure.
At this time, we're just going to open it up to public comment. While Cliff to do that.
Public comment section is set aside for members of the community who wish to address the board. For the purposes of this meeting, the public comment section will be held in a question and answer format. Speakers are requested to stand, state their name, and the school district they are from. Out of respect to all participants, speakers will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes, and the entire public comment will be limited to 45 minutes total. We may be waived if we run over that. Personal attacks will not be tolerated, as we believe it is important to model appropriate behavior for our children at all school levels in the district.
Thanks, Cliff. And so there's a microphone in both aisles. We'll just alternate from one side to the other. So if anyone has a comment or a question, please don't hesitate to come forward. Come on up, please.
I'm a little. Can you bring it down just a smidge? Usually like to go this way. Hi, my name is Judy. I am a 5th generation Hancock alumni. My question, how would special education be affected, directed? I was blessed with 2 autistic children. I don't know if you guys know the numbers these days. It's 33% of the entire class size and growing quickly. You said BOCES? Yeah? Which BOCES? Delhi or Trump?
So the DCMO BOCES has a campus in Norwich, both the campus in Norwich and the one in Sydney Center. There's no BOCES Center in Delhi.
Oh, they took one out of Delhi? I've been out so long. Well, I have a 25 and a 13, so it's a 10-year age gap. But being the mom of the children with no voice, I'm having some trouble. Could you?
It's so a big portion of the study will be around special education, other educational opportunities. And so that certainly would be a prominent piece that would move forward as far as what could happen. We are learning about your district.
You're doing the survey, correct?
Yes, yes.
Can I educate you on one thing? Deposit goes this way, Hancock goes this way.
Mhm.
Deposit services that our kids do not because of mine. I've been in this district for years. My school board knows me really well. I'm fighting for our lives here. It's rough. We had a program, it got dropped, it got moved. The teacher left, the children got dropped. There's an age gap in the middle. We've talked about this. When they get their language, when you get them to full sentences, you drop them out. Okay? I don't know how many of you have autistic. It's coming. Grandkids, it's coming. Nonverbal, it's coming. And I'm not just talking for mom. I understand the merger is scary. And one of the things that you said was identity of the town. You skipped that. The thing you don't know, these were rival schools. These parents played basketball against each other for a belt as a representation. I want to remind the community, as much as it was an envy thing, as a small town, we choose to live here. We don't want city life. We live across one-lane bridges and down back roads for a reason, because we enjoy where we are. That doesn't mean our children should not see what they need. Google has an autistic-only program. If we can't get our kids to more than just football and the Army and the Marines, we give up 33% of our children to the military. The ones that go to college, most of them come back to be teachers here. Most of us stay here because we want to be here. We are hardworking 2 individual towns. If we don't come together, we will die out. Is it going to be one building? Or is it going to be all? You're not answering for the game, me, and the ticket players.
So
The people want to know, is it going to be all one building? Is it going to be this district or that district? Are we going to fall in this watershed or not? We have the reservoir, but Hancock don't get the money. Downsville gets it. They get it. We get skipped. Yes, the merger would be phenomenal. We could get higher paid teachers. The administration now, we we had 278 students. When I graduated, how do we get families to move here and live here and raise their children?
I want to take a second and interrupt you, and I apologize. But what we want to do is make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. And
Is it 5 minutes, sir?
5 minutes,
Is
yep.
it 5 minutes?
I'm not saying you're done. I'm just saying we want to give everybody the opportunity to speak.
And I'm being transparent.
Absolutely.
I know what the community wants. We already know you're gonna do it. We already know you're gonna do it.
Well,
It's gonna happen. It needs to happen.
let me speak. Can I speak?
No, it's how is it directly going to affect us?
Can I just speak to your questions?
Absolutely.
All right. The reason we're doing the merge study is to answer the questions you have. This is what the study's all about. We do have a response or the answers to your questions until the study has been completed. All right. So when you ask,
On our screen, I saw sports, I saw art. That's why I'm asking directly, because that 33% of your student body gets skipped.
So I could help with that. I think what was portrayed on the screen was the areas where you're currently working collaboratively. And so what we're producing through the study is some of the answers to your questions. So I would want to make sure that you know nothing's been decided yet, because we haven't done the work yet. And what they need as a board is the work that comes from that, coupled with the information from your community members to help guide them in terms of whether or not to move forward. And then if they move forward with a merger vote and it's successful, then a future board decides how things are going to happen. So they won't even in their current roles decide how things will happen. It will be a future Board of Education that hires a superintendent that then the district is laid out from there. So we'll have recommendations in our study, but they won't by any means be certainly the things that will happen in a future district. That is up to a very important vote of board members for that future district, should it go to that point.
I would,
hope I answered your
I
question.
would just add that the two of the things I think though that are on your mind about special education and BOCES will be big talking points and research points for this study. So I think you have an opportunity to engage in that, and I think we'll have some more answers at the end of this process. And I appreciate your passion in coming out to share that with us.
My name's Chris Gross, and I'm a parent in the Hancock School District. And I have to say that I had, I guess, different expectations of what a merger study would be. So when this came out a week or so ago, I had made a comment on the Facebook article. I had made a post that I didn't think it agreed with what my expectation was. And I thought the comment was polite and articulate, but I guess we have a different version of transparency, because the next morning that comment was gone. So anyway, my expectation is that you would undergo a study to weigh the pros and cons of merging two school districts. And those pros and cons would consider every imaginable circumstance that could develop from a merger. And what I hear tonight, what I see in the current study is that, for lack of a better word, somebody's cherry-picked 3 questions. And those questions are really, they're very positive. And I'll just read what it is. The purpose of the study is to determine whether the potential merger of our 2 school districts could enhance educational opportunities for students, increase organizational capacity, and promote long-term financial sustainability. Well, it's not going to be hard to find a yes for all those questions, but that's kind of really cherry picking. And so it seems like the consultants, your task evolved from the RFP. So one question I have is, and it might be a little late on this, but who drafted the RFP?
My BOCES business office drafted the RFP.
You did. And did both boards approve that RFP?
They did.
I'm sorry, did or did not?
Yes.
They did.
Yes.
Okay. So the study originates from the RFP. The RFP in itself was, I would say, biased. I would expect an unbiased, impartial study of all the circumstances. And it doesn't appear that that's going to come out of this study.
So, Mr. Gross, one of the things I flip back to this chart because this is what the front of the report would contain. And if you see there, one of the sections of that is challenges. We search and we uncover all of those through asking a number of people and through being part of committees, hearing the thought exchange. And so we don't hide those. That's transparent. We'll put those challenges right in the report. That's the way we've done that in the past, and that's the way we'll continue to do that. Because there is no easy one solution that solves everything, right? So we want to make sure that we know that there will be some pain, but like we said, we want to determine if the gain is higher than the pain, the loss from the pain. And that's what that report is about. So we share everything that we hear in that sense. We're not going to be trying to hide anything or cherry pick. There are some things that are clearly, the aid that you would get from the state, that's clearly out there and that's a positive. But there are other things that we'll uncover that are clearly part of any kind of merger process.
Well, I'm not accusing you of trying to hide anything. However, I do think that the study is initially biased and to reach a particular conclusion, because I think the questions have been cherry-picked. And I hope that you will address every question involved, including things like the intangibles, like the loss of community identity. You don't know what's going to happen here, and neither board is going to make a decision on it. There's going to be a new board if there's a merger passed, and one community could lose its school altogether. So you've got to address the impact on something like that. And
you would definitely see that in the challenges section. There will,
Okay.
without even us doing the thought exchange, we know that will be a component of that challenges section.
I'm glad to hear that. I want to point out that that's not what the purpose of the study is, because that's what has been said. But I hope that is considered.
Our study will be a reflection of everything that we hear. And we would love to have a time that we could talk to you individually to get more information from you specifically, if you would like that.
Well, I signed up for every committee, so I'm sure I'll see you somewhere.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Is there another community member that would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Jesse Kasky from Deposit. Kind of on what he was saying, told all about the benefits, nothing about the negatives. What about the kids that are going to be on the bus for 1 or 2 hours? I mean, are they leaning towards building a new school or 2 separate schools? I mean, right now, some kids are on the bus over an hour now. What are we going to do about that?
Yeah, so that again will emerge through the thought exchange. One of the things we're working on doing we're not sure if we'll be able to, but is to work with a software routing company to be able to answer that question more specifically, because that we know that we put out a thought exchange or have any kind of conversation where that is going to come up over and over and over again. That's something that parents undoubtedly have as a great concern about transportation of their kids.
And
Any of these meetings,
transportation,
though, I'd like to see the negatives
Oh,
brought
yeah.
up too.
So
Not just the benefits.
right. So transportation transcends all three of those things, right? So it's an organizational capacity issue. How long are students on the bus? It's a financial issue. How many more buses or drivers would you need in order to make sure that students aren't on the bus that long? And we all know that being on the bus too long has an adverse impact on the educational experiences. So when we talk about all the challenges, maybe we should say negatives, right? If that makes you, it could be a semantics game, but I don't want anyone to hear us say that whether you merge or not, right? It's not our decision, it's yours. There will be negative impacts. Will those negatives be outweighed by positives? We don't know. We'll find out. But that's going to be your decision to make. We're going to say to you, here are all the advantages and here are all the disadvantages. You make the decision. We don't have a vote in this. We don't live here. At the end of the day, we recognize a few things. These are your kids, not ours. We're just outsiders. This is your money, not ours. Right? So we're not going to pay taxes here. We don't send I don't have kids that are school age anymore, but so at the end of the day, we want to make sure that whatever decision you make, it's made with all the information you need to make that decision. No one's going to walk into that booth and say, everything about this is positive, I'm voting for it. Everything about this is negative, I'm not. Because it's just not that simple.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
On the next meeting, put the negatives right up here so we can see them, not just the positives.
Yes,
I'm not saying
so-
it's a bad thing,
Right.
but I want both sides.
Yeah, absolutely, and they'll be right in that report.
I'm Mary Mapes. I'm from Deposit District. I'm curious because we're in two different counties. That is it possible, like say they merge, that you could have a school in Delaware County and a school but they would have one BOCES, correct?
Yes, they would have one BOCES.
And how would they go about deciding what BOCES they would go to?
That's a process that happens in between the straw poll and when it goes to the commissioner, that's decided through the state education department.
What do they look at? Do they
They-
look at the programs you have?
Yeah, I'll let
Or-
Mike-
Yeah,
I'll let you-
so they do an objective analysis of programming, of impact to the BOCES, impact to students, and then make a decision based on that analysis.
What's the impact to the BOCES? The money situation?
Well, that certainly is one piece, sure.
But
But it's also about educational opportunities for students that they'll take a look at, enrollments, are there waiting lists for particular programs, right? It's all of those kinds of things that matter for the experience that children have.
So everything would be considered, just not the big financial, are we putting one BOCES out of commission over another?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I think it's important, right? Because at the end of the day, if this happens, right? If the people who vote decide that they want to move in this direction, you're going to be in one or the other BOCES. So somebody's going to move either from Broome, Tioga to DCMO or the reverse. So I think it's, yeah, sure.
So on that topic, will everybody know which BOCES they would be voting on at the time of the vote?
At the time of the binding referendum.
Why would it not be determined by the programs available to the children with IEPs? If you're not meeting the needs of the children, then either you're going to need to create new programs to meet their needs,
That's definitely part of the calculus. Absolutely.
Thank you. That was the part that I didn't
Yeah.
understand. I felt like it wasn't being addressed. You understand? Like right now,
Sure.
that's what I meant by the bottom picture.
And having,
We have all these children that don't have this need met, and BOCES can't provide it, but we can't go out of it. You understand what I'm saying? So if it does, that's why she's asking.
sure, and having
It's out
been,
there in this group.
sure, but having been a former district superintendent for BOCES, I can tell you that especially with border school districts, there is access to programs as needed through cross contracts. I have no doubt.
You said non,
My name?
non-school district, that's up north on Finger Lakes?
I would say Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES.
Is there another community member that would like to ask a question or make a comment? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Liz Rice from Hancock Central School alumni. You might have gone over this already, but how and who decides the straw vote versus the petition vote?
That would be up to the boards of education to decide which route they'd want to take.
Okay. I'm following up to a concern raised on our stakeholder committee meeting, specifically to the times. We did talk about this briefly at our Hancock Board of Education last month. For the working families, some people have come to me and it's not feasible for them to attend some of these meetings. So we were just wondering if there was any discussion on time changes or an update to that.
Well, we haven't discussed anything, but if that's something that emerges, we can certainly work to make sure that we have access to everybody that wants to be either in a focus group or in those stakeholder groups. We have no desire to shut anybody out of that. We want to hear as many voices as
I
possible.
appreciate that. Yes, it was supposed to be brought to you guys. Thank you.
In the past, though, we have met with separate groups who couldn't meet at different times. So, listen, for whatever reason, we can't be at X building at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, but we're available at, 5 o'clock on Friday. Well, we'll come meet with that group of people at 5 o'clock on Friday.
And I think one of the reasons was our advisory committee was scheduled to meet later in the day, but there are a number of us on the team. So if need be, we can break off and have one or two of us to meet with other groups if need be. And so we'll work with your folks on that. We want to be as flexible as possible in terms of making sure that nobody's shut out of this process that wants to be part of it.
Is there opportunity for parents or the working family just to reach out to you individually to contact you?
Oh, certainly. The other thing too is that you have there's a number of ways. The thought exchange link will be sent out. So
Okay.
that's the first way. And that's sort of crowdsourcing the information as well. So you may have an idea. It will be sent to other people that are on the thought exchange for them to rate that idea to see how it fits with your thinking. But you also, you'll have access to our emails and that sort of
Okay.
thing to make any comment that
That's
you
what I
want
was
or
looking
ask
for.
any question.
Thank you. I think one last thing regarding the merger committees, again, just specifically for the Student Voices Committee, just not only speaking for myself, a couple of other parents. We have some 8th graders that are planning to meet with their guidance counselor in a couple of months and plan their trajectory of their high school career. They're very interested and they feel that they should have the opportunity. So we're just wondering if that could also be opened up to 8th graders that might be interested.
Absolutely. We will meet with whoever the school districts determine that we should meet with. We'll absolutely do that. So I'm going to be, in the interest of full disclosure, when we meet with students, grades 7, sometimes 6 through 12, it's very productive. We get a lot of good information. We have met with younger students. It's nice, right? And they certainly have something to contribute. But the thoughts that students in middle school through high school have
just even on our tour today in Deposit, which was lovely, we talked to probably 30 to 40 students informally during the entire day. And that brings joy to us, having been retired from the system.
And as you can imagine, that they have opinions. Oh.
They do. Yes, they do. Thank you very much.
My name is Kelly Wheeler. I'm from the Hancock School District, and I did attend the meeting in March of last year. And while we were there, the superintendent said, you know, there's programs out there we can't afford, we want to give to our students, which I understand. And I felt there was a big push put at us like, well, if we merge for 14 years, we're going to get all this extra aid. Okay. Is the study going to look at the end of the 14 years and that money's gone, are we going to be able to sustain those programs that we've added? And what is it going to do to the tax base for people like me? I'm a retired senior. Is that study going to tell us any of that?
Yes, to the greatest extent possible, right? So that whole financial sustainability piece is very, very important, right? We will definitely have recommendations for what can be done and should be done with the money and what shouldn't be done with the money over time. What would be a huge, tremendous failure is when school districts who do move in this direction and don't think about the future and don't spend the money properly, they end up being almost in the same or a worse situation 15, 20 years down the road.
Where they would have to, the two schools would have to merge with the other.
Or would just still be struggling. So our process is be very thoughtful about what it is you can offer and that what you could still be able to offer and expand upon when that money eventually disappears, because it's finite. That's for sure. But there are ways to foolishly squander the money, and there are ways to use it properly to sustain a generation.
Okay, thank you.
But again, to Mr. Gross's point, and I wanted to get back to this because I would feel like we skirted the issue. It's absolutely true that the future Board of Education can do whatever they want. That's an absolute fact. So my advice is to make sure that you're a considerate and thoughtful voter. Make sure you know who you're voting for and make sure that the people who are running for whatever elected office are going to represent your best interest in what you know about. So, but I'm not going to sit here and say that we could do all this work, make wonderful recommendations. The community could agree to move forward, and then 5, 7, or 9 people are elected that don't agree with that direction and could do something very differently. But that's at that point, that's on you guys. You vote for them. So, but I didn't want you to think that couldn't happen. So good.
We have a little more time for some more questions or comments if anyone is interested.
One more question. Have you ever seen it happen, or is there any provision under the law where the study could be submitted to the state and despite the straw vote being voted down, where the state could compel a merger of the school districts?
Only the state legislature can redraw boundaries without having to ask permission from their constituents. And we all know that even if it was the right thing to do, they don't have the courage to do things like that. So it would never happen.
Never is a strong word.
Well, extremely unlikely. You're right. I've never say never.
Is it possible without building a whole new school? Is it possible that the students could stay in Deposit and the students could stay in Hancock and there's one board? Is that ever, you said you've done this a bunch of times. And what's the percentage of mergers that stay rooted in their community?
You're going to have one high school, right? That's not even arguable.
One or the other.
Yeah. So I'm going to be very open about that, right? One of these high schools is going to be a high school, And one of the other high schools is not going to be a high school.
Is a possibility to make it a BOCES facility that is not meeting the needs of our children? Could that be a possibility?
If there's extra space, that's always a possibility.
That campus, there's plenty of space.
Oh, we wouldn't empty that. Oh, well, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's hard to say.
278 students between two schools.
It's, I mean, I think at this point, it's too much conjecture because we haven't gone through the study. What all I would say
No, I
is,
asked you the percentage. You said you've done it a bunch of times. What's the percentage of schools that stay intact but still come together? Is there any, or is it all?
If I'm understanding your question correctly, it's not allowable. So you're not going to, your communities aren't going to be given this incentive aid to just keep things as they currently are, just give you more money. This would all be performative. That's not the intention behind this.
No, I didn't say that, sir.
Sure, I'm just
If
saying.
you picked, say, theoretically, you moved all the hot bodies from Hancock to Deposit, and you left the big school empty, is it possible that you could use that as a BOCES facility for the children that are the needs not being met?
My understanding is that future board would have the responsibility to make a determination about what happens with that campus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But either way, merger equals one or the other.
for at least the high school
The
level,
hot bodies.
at least the,
That's the root question, I think, was on a lot of our minds.
I want to make sure that you know, it doesn't mean that
It's necessary, it must be done.
it doesn't mean the entire school, the entire community from one school district has to go to the other school district. It means that at least at the high school level, there has to be just one building. That's our understanding. There are plenty of mergers where where the elementary buildings may remain intact for those communities. That's certainly a possibility. Again, we're getting way far down the road. And so I don't want to plant something.
From your community.
Yeah,
I'll
well,
be honest.
yeah,
Because we don't know what the end result is
Either
going
do
to
we.
be.
we
That's
don't-
the hesitation. We want to believe what you're telling us is going to be beneficial, but if we don't know what you're going to do with us, then we don't know if we want to buy it.
exactly. And so what I can tell you is by May and June, you will see what are those benefits, what are the drawbacks. That advisory committee could make recommendations about which schools to use, which not to. That will likely be in a report. And you will see that then
It'll come from the
we're
input that you get from the teachers.
exactly, we're way too soon. We're way too soon tonight to be able to share all of the information that you want to hear, which I understand why you'd want to hear.
That's everyone's bottom line, sir.
Sure.
I'll be honest with you.
And
That's everyone's bottom line. Where's my baby going?
exactly.
Where's my baby going?
I just want to repeat what I said when I began. Today, we know nothing.
Yeah.
We've done nothing, right?
No, it's
So,
the beginning.
yeah.
Yes,
It's
right.
the beginning.
But those
If we don't know
answers,
what we're doing,
those
then
questions,
we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
Thank you. Is there another community member? I think there's a few minutes left. Dean, I think we're all set.
All right, we're going to close public comment. And number one, we'd like to thank everyone for coming out on this chilly evening, spending the time with us, asking the hard questions. As they had stated, there's not a lot of answers that we have until this study is completed. So a lot of this is going to be worked on. It's going to be a process, transparent as I'm sure they're going to be, and committees will be taking place. So we appreciate all your effort in being here. I want to thank, Hancock Board for coming. Deposit, accept a motion to adjourn. John? Don? Discussion? All in favor? Aye. No nays? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Just want to encourage everybody. Thank you for being here. Like Dean said, it's the beginning of the process. If you have not joined a committee and can, or you have time constraints and you're concerned, you'll be able to let us know. Please do. Thank you to our student, Tragan Lord, who is here tonight. Tragan, convince your friends to join the Student Voices groups. And I appreciate your participation and coming out tonight. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to our guests.